6 Florida A&M students are suing the state of Florida, saying their university is being shortchanged when it comes to funding. In a class action lawsuit, the students allege decades of discriminatory underfunding of the public, historically black university. They claim the University of Florida received a larger state appropriation per student than FAMU from 1987 to 2020, amounting to a shortfall of roughly $1.3 billion. This comes on the heels of a Forbes story that detailed the university not receiving or should have been getting about $2 billion. Joining us now, two of the lawyers who filed the lawsuit on behalf of the students, Barbara J. Hart and Bobby Brown. Glad to have both of you on the show. So first off, let's sort of walk through this here. And typically when you have these lawsuits, courts say, well, who has standing? So explain to us how these students, by them filing the lawsuit, they have the standing, because Florida A&M hasn't filed the suit, obviously because they're a state university. Very similar to the lawsuit that took place here took place in Maryland, where a lawsuit was filed on behalf of the 4 public HBCUs. The schools were not involved, but I know for a fact the schools welcomed that particular lawsuit. I'm quite sure privately Florida A&M also welcomes this lawsuit.
Well, thank you for that. The standing issue will be litigated, I'm quite confident, but we feel that the students have an acute deprivation of the equal funding, and the students talk really quite tangibly about their experiences in the dorms and the way they see the facilities and the struggles that their professors have with getting basic equipment. So the students are really experiencing the underfunding, and that's a cognizable injury that gives you standing. And we feel that the students are the ones that are best able to really, they love the school, they're proud of being at the school, and they're actually experiencing the disparity in the facilities, which is all the way that the disparity in the funding manifests itself. And so we feel confident that they have standing under the law.
Bobby, I referenced what happened here in Maryland. They sued during the testimony. It came out what experts said they lost upwards of $2 billion. Eventually, that was a settlement that was signed. The state came up with $522 million. But also, I think back to the suit Alvin Chambliss won for Mississippi. As y'all have put this together, did y'all look to the Maryland suit, the Mississippi suit, in terms of looking at how to file this suit in Florida?
Absolutely. And I'll defer more to who is leading our litigation team, Barbara, in talking about just how much research we did with both of those cases. And what I will say is beyond just the cases, in terms of understanding the student situation, getting to be in the environment, being right there in Tallahassee, where one university, Florida A&M University, is right across the train tracks from Florida State University, getting a true understanding and a feel for beyond just experiential knowing, growing up in Florida and knowing people that went to Florida A&M, knowing people that went to Florida State. I wanted the firm also to have a really on the ground, on the boots on the ground sort of feel to what this case was all about and the injustices that we were trying to overcome as a firm. And I'll allow Barbara, I don't know if you want to talk about the level of research, but indeed, in both cases were examples for us, and both in terms of how we wanted to approach the case and sort of the standing question that you posed initially.
Sure, Barbara, go ahead.
Great. Well, Bobby's too modest, but the standing issue, I'm not troubled by at all. It really just requires actual injury, and we are confident on that. And, I think in so many things, we all stand on the shoulders of what other people have fought before to establish. And so we do look to the history of other litigations. We didn't completely emulate it. And of course, we hope that we'll see resolution more quickly than the lawsuit in Maryland. I mean, it took 10 years for that to get right.
Yeah, actually, it was like 13. I mean, it was 13. And I covered it for the last 6 years.
Yeah. Forgive me. You're quite correct. So what I'm saying, though, is we'd love for it to come to fruition sooner. The students are really terrific people, some undergrads, some graduate students, and they all talk about the ways in which this has impacted them, the stress that they feel, and the challenges in terms of housing and stipends for the graduate students, and different things where they've experienced faculty that don't even have basic, computers that are necessary, whiteboards, things like that are commonplace in schools. The goal will be to try to get somewhere quicker than what occurred in Maryland, but they certainly plowed the fields for us in terms of establishing a lot of the law that we will look to.
How did this lawsuit happen? Did the students approach y'all? So how did this all come together? And it was over a period of what? How many months?
Well,
I'll just
go ahead.
Yeah, I'll let you say more officially how it came together. But even prior to the research that we did, when we decided as a firm to put resources and put some of our intellectual property within the firm into really establishing a civil rights group, there were some obvious cases that we thought would be interesting for our firm. One that had worked so hard in different areas, but in this particular area, civil rights. I, along with some of the other attorneys, went to our partners, a group of partners, and said that we think this would be an interesting case. We put a lot of research into it. The article came out subsequent to some of the research that was already done, and then the sort of the process started in order to formalize this and bring in clients. And Barbara, I'll throw it to you in terms of from a civil procedure standpoint how it came about, but. We've been working on this for a while, and the research that was done by the associates and our litigation team we're very proud of.
So you were working on this for a while. So did you find the students, or did they come to you? Just curious.
Well, Bobby has a lot of family and friends in Florida, and it was just conversations that, as we were examining the issue, conversations led to people that wanted to talk to us. And the students are very committed to this. I welcome an opportunity for them to come back in and talk with you personally. They're very fired up to try to make it right at the school they love. I love your T-shirt, by the way.
Yeah, well, the first commencement I ever gave was at Florida Memorial, and that was the first. That was the first honorary degree I got, one of the six, and so I decided to go ahead and rock this today. I do have a Florida A&M one, but I said I'll rock the Florida Memorial one today since they were the first. I got some questions from my panelists. Matt, you're a civil rights attorney. I'll start with you.
Let me first say I think this is brilliant how y'all brought this lawsuit, and thank you for standing up for the students. I guess my question is, from a damages standpoint, are you not only asking for, or let me ask specifically, what are you asking for? Is there a plan in terms of what they want going forward, and also recompense for what they haven't gotten since 1987? I know that was part of the model in the other states was, a payback model. What is your thought in that respect, and what is your thought as it relates to a per pupil, deliverable? Because at the end of the day, they want better dorms, better, comparable, not only better, but comparable to what you would get at Florida State. So what is the damage model, and how did y'all approach kind of conceptualizing that?
Well, one thing that we believe is that it's been underfunded for decades. The statute of limitations will be an issue in terms of how far back we can go on damages. But that is, we want past damages, the underfunding for the years foregone, the years gone past. We want the current years, and we want future funding to be at parity. And, the money would flow to the school. These students are committed to the school. They're not looking for their own. I'm not confused that you were saying per capita. They want the money to go to the school to be per capita at parity with the other land grant schools. And, they're not currently. How that'll manifest, it's a long road. In terms of, housing seems to be something that leapt out really acutely earlier this year, both the underavailability of housing and the conditions in which the housing was made available to the students. So housing would certainly be one of the issues. We also see a duplication in programs, which cannibalizes the programs at Florida A&M, and we want to put an end to that. We want the showcase programs that Florida A&M has developed to be not in competition with FSU programs that are in close proximity. So, but it's a little bit premature for us to engage in like specific asks, other than what we know the money needs to get square.
Brianna.
Yes, thank you so much for this lawsuit and all the hard work that you're doing. I wish our students could just be students. Yeah, I'm so glad that change may come. From Howard to FAMU, I love to see that they're organizing on these campuses for bettering their schools and our future and our community. How can other students on other campuses start a lawsuit on the historical misallocation of state funding?
They can call me or Bobby.
Yes, please do.
How do they call you?
We are both on the internet. We're at Grant and Eisenhofer. I'm bhart@gelaw.com. They can email me. I'll call them right back. I call my clients. I love my clients. And Bobby's, Bobby has
B Brown at GE Law. Same.
Hold on. First of all, hold on, y'all. Slow down. Barbara, give your email again.
bhart, BHART at GElaw.com.
Bobby?
It's BROWN at GElaw.com.
All right, cool. That way, because trust me, they're going to start cussing in the chat room like, slow down, I didn't catch it. All right, Michael, your question.
Yes, great job, attorneys, and shout out to those 6 Florida A&M students who are filing this lawsuit. In reading the article from the Washington Post, it talks about duplication of programs and how this puts Florida A&M at a disadvantage. Then it also talks about in the lawsuit, it claims that the University of Florida received a larger state appropriation per student than FAMU from 1987 to 2020, amounting to a shortfall of roughly $1.3 billion. What was the formula that, have you been able to ascertain from the state what formula they used to allocate funds per student to the University of Florida as opposed to FAMU? I'm trying to figure out, okay, what's the rhyme or reason here? And is it possible you can give 1 or 2 examples of the programs that were duplicated also? Attorney Hart mentioned that before Brianna's question.
The engineering program was duplicated. And, at first blush, that doesn't sound like anything like a problem. But what happens is it undermines the success and the competitiveness of the program at FAMU.
That actually was the basis of the Maryland lawsuit.
Right.
The judge actually threw out unequal funding, and she really locked and loaded on the duplication of programs. That's what led to that settlement.
I'm with you, and my colleagues really had to get me up to speed on that particular issue, because at first blush, it could really look like that's a good thing. To more engineering programs. What's the matter with more engineering programs? But what we find is it undermines the school that's already trying to play catch up and is also doing it with less funding. So
Right.
it just ends up undermining the program that's trying to thrive and increase the prestige of the HBCU. So it's considered the vestiges of separate but equal. And we know that was baloney and completely unacceptable. So the engineering program is the poster child of that. And then in terms of the underfunding, we drilled into the archives and the budgets that are published and the data that's online. Our number comes out differently than the Forbes number, which was 1.8 billion. but we believe that that disparity might have to do with inflation, and it also, we need to err on the side of conservatism. We're not.
Right.
Not that there's anything the matter with the press. We love the press. We're allies with the press. But we're saying something in a court filing. So we needed to tick and tie our numbers. So we felt more comfortable with the 1.3 billion.
Okay.
All right, then. Matt, you have a question, right?
Yeah, one more question. So, Attorney Hart, you kind of alluded to this, but the moment I read this lawsuit, I thought about Sweat v. Painter, and you kind of have already, referenced that. And I was interested in your methodology as it relates to the mediator. So I know y'all are asking for a mediator to help ascertain ways to make it more equitable. And in particular, I know a lot of the issue is prestige, right? The idea that people may choose U of F as opposed to FAMU on the basis of prestige and other opportunities that FAMU is not able to offer due to the funding disparity. So with particular respect to the mediator, how are y'all approaching giving that mediator information to help determine how to make it more equitable? I'm very interested in that.
Well, unfortunately, this isn't running on a racetrack the way that we have seen the mediator happen in some other litigation that people are following related to confidential top secret documents. This will be a slow process, and as I said, ideally not as slow as the Maryland case. But I would expect the first issue will be a motion to dismiss from the Board of Governors and the state. Where they will contest that we don't have standing, or that we haven't stated a claim, and that there's no underfunding, and they will challenge us. So we are a far cry from the mediator, but we do see that as somebody that could facilitate an outcome where we could address the disparity in funding. And I don't want to suck up all the airtime. I mean, Bobby, if you want to talk about your vision for the mediator, but all I'm trying to say is, it might be a long time until we get to a mediation. We're not out of the starting blocks, really. We're serving these papers on the defendants, and they're going to have their counter say. And one might think that they're not just going to say, "Oh, we totally agree," right? They're going to contest what we've said.
All right.
And sorry.
No, Bobby, go ahead.
I was just going to add to that, and it's worth noting that regardless of how we get there, there are 6 amazing plaintiffs here, students that are working hard in class. A lot of them have jobs that are standing up and to do what's right. So whether it be through however the mediator is chosen, we talked about relief. I think the injunctive relief and the idea that things are being put in place to make decisions regarding state funding that are sort of like we all understand the concept of the fruit of the poisonous tree is sort of the same thing here. Some of the same metrics you're using to determine where the funds are allocated are really the sort of the fruits of the seeds being sown for disparate treatment. And so with this circular manner in which this is happening, the injunctive relief is just as important. And these students are standing up for their peers, for their current students that they're in class with, but also for the student that, is going to apply 20 years from now. And I think that is the thing to celebrate. And they are very proud of Florida A&M. They're very proud of their university, their institution. And this is just a way to make things, in our opinion, more fair. FAMU and other HBCUs have done more with less, but just imagine, because FAMU has produced some amazing individuals, just imagine what they could do with more, when more is just really, in this case, fair.
And we say fair, black folks in Florida have been paying taxes for a very long time. And so what you have is you have resources going to build up Florida State, build up University of Florida, build up other institutions, and they have been neglecting black institutions. And we have seen this all across this country where you have HBCUs. And so when I was in North Carolina, I connected officials there with Alvin Chambliss and others and saying, hey, you should be considering the state should be considering suing the state. And I believe that this should be the objective of lawyers all across the country, going after every single state where you have a public HBCU and examining whether the funding issue. A committee in Tennessee ruled that Tennessee State had been underfunded to the tune of $500 million. I'm quite sure that number is actually higher. But again, someone should be filing suit in Tennessee on behalf of Tennessee State to ensure they're able to get that money. And so we appreciate the work that y'all are doing. Certainly keep us abreast of this. Like I say, I'm quite familiar with these stories. We've had Alvin Chambers on this show. We covered extensively the Maryland case. I even led a rally in Maryland. So just let me know if y'all need us to come down to Florida to bring in a little public pressure. I own my camera, so I don't have to ask anybody. So we'll be happy to come down there.
That's very generous. Thank you.
All right, we appreciate it. Thanks a bunch. All right, folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment.
When we invest in ourselves, our glow, our vision, our vibe, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?